All right, we're on the home stretch here for these elections. 7 days from now, 1 week from tonight, we will be on the air live here with coverage of the election from around the region and across the country. That as voters make their final selections. Now, based on what we're seeing in the polls, it could be a very good night for the GOP. Andrew, give a snapshot. No matter what numbers you look at, it's not good for the Dems.
Rich, looking past the House, which everybody expects is going to stay in GOP control, and there's new reason to think the Republicans are even better positioned to take back the Senate. From the Washington Post, which puts the odds at 92% for a GOP takeover. 538 and Huffington Post have the GOP odds at about 60%. Real Clear Politics puts the GOP at 52 Senate seats. Now, those projections are based on individual polling, but also on factors like the mood of voters. And a new national poll shows voters are leaning Republican. On the generic ballot, that's the pick a party, not a person. Republicans up 50 to 44 from ABC and the Washington Post. That lean inspired in part by 2/3 of the voters who say the nation's on the wrong track. People also think the president is on the wrong track. His approval numbers 1 week out are now dangerously underwater. 51% of voters say they disapprove of the president's performance. But there are some mixed messages from voters as well. Half of all voters say the president isn't a factor in their congressional vote. But of those who are being motivated by the president, more are voting against him than for him. Another mixed message, the outcome next Tuesday. 4 in 10 voters say Republican control of the Senate won't make a difference in the government or their lives. But more people think a GOP takeover would be a good thing than think it would be a bad thing, even though more people trust Democrats on more major issues, which speaks to voter frustration with government in general. That's a trend that benefits Republicans. And check out these numbers. 6 in 10 voters now say they either have little or no trust in the government. Only 40% say they do trust the government, even if they only trust that somewhat, Rich. So take all of those numbers you're seeing in all of these local races, and even for the fight for the control of the Senate, add a couple of points to every Republican. That's the way these things tend to work. It's a rising tide that lifts one party over the other.
And that last poll number you gave, it to me, is the most disconcerting of all. The belief that we can't turn to government for help here.
And it comes up in so many issues. We talked about Ebola. We talked about Sandy earlier on in the show. That's a government trust issue on both fronts.
And it's a Republican mantra. Look, don't look to the government. Look to yourself. Look to be empowered.
Except
that's what it goes right along with what
who are they looking to? They're looking to the government on Ebola. Who are they looking to whenever there's a storm?
We're here to offer guidance. Guidance, and to help you live the American dream. That's a Republican. It's a Republican dream.
But it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You tell people long enough that the government can't do anything right, and pretty soon the government can't do anything right.
Right, under Obama, that's correct.
No.
All right, now, how much do you think? The public seems to think it doesn't matter who you put there, nothing's going to change, nothing will get done. Do Republicans think, hey, come Tuesday, we win here. Once we swear in the new class, we got the House and the Senate. If they think it was bad for Obama the first 6 years, just wait till the next 2. Do they risk overplaying their hand here, thinking that the public wants this because they like what we're selling? Or do they understand that it's really dissatisfaction with how things are going and they're making the president pay the price for it?
Look, at the end of the day...
You understand my question?
No, exactly. But here, at the end of the day, Republicans, whether they win the majority in the Senate, or they already have the House, that's a given, they still have to come up with an agenda. And right now, there's no national Republican agenda to follow. The House feels one way about immigration, the Senate Republicans feel another way. The economy, there's no national Republican agenda. So the Republicans, in order to be successful and prepare for the 2016 election, because the Republicans are going to want the White House, they've got to be very careful, and they've got to come up with an agenda that's going to work for that 2016 election. That's the priority first.
Tuesday's going to be about Obama, right?
It appears that way, Richard. The Democrats ought to be ashamed of themselves because this president does have some accomplishments, but they have permitted Republicans to demonize him, and a lot of it has been his fault as well. Okay, like I don't think it was a good idea. I know this is petty. That suit he just had on. That's just like one of 1,000 cuts that's just been happening. So like the Affordable Care Act, the rollout might have been horrible, but polling seems to show that it's helping a lot of Americans, and so. What's going to happen is the Republicans, I thought that they would step on their own feet by now and say something outrageous. They have been very disciplined. They've just got one more week to go. And then they're going, and if you think, like the poll said that Americans don't care whether it's Democrat or Republican, we'll see in 6 months when they have the House and the Senate. We'll see how you feel then.
I think Tuesday is going to be more about that last poll number, a lack of trust, a lack of faith in the government, and people are reacting to it by voting for change as opposed to necessarily voting for or against the president.
All right. When we come back, we're going to leave politics for a second, but we're going to talk about an issue. In fact, Andrew covered it today. The idea, if you think about New York, you say a progressive state, one of only a few states in this country that treats 16-year-olds as adults when it comes to the criminal justice system. And you know what? We're going to hear from people, including the former chief judge in New York, who says this isn't something New York ought to be proud of.